Hey, what's up guys? Actually, let me take these headphones off. I don't need that going on. This is going to be a little bit of a more casual video than typical. It's actually kind of late at night here. It's almost 9 o'clock. I guess not that late by most people's standards, but I usually go to bed around now. But I've got a few different IEMs over here that I need to unbox. I need to measure them, put them up on Squiglink, and I figured why not do it with all y'all hanging around. So I'll show you what I got over here on the table. As promised by the title, I've got the Tin Hifi T5. This is a brand new IEM out, I think just today. And we'll talk about that. We've also got the Fiio FH5s, brand new IEM from them, as well as over here, we've got Hiby's new flagship IEM, the Crystal6. And so I'll go through each of those IEMs and kind of give you a breakdown of them. But for the most part, I'm just planning on unboxing them. I'll throw them up on my measurement rig, and then over here on this other screen to my left, let's see, I can show you that. This is where we have Room Equalizer Wizard. Basically, this is just the software that we use to measure IEMs. So you can watch me measure them in real time, and then I will come over here and actually upload them into Squiglink if you're curious to see how all that happens. I promise it's not that interesting, but I don't know, might as well share it with you while I'm doing it, because it's an evening and not up to too much, and hopefully you're all down for just kind of a chill ride. So that's what we're going to be doing today. I'll be also watching the live chat in real time and trying to keep up with it a little bit better than I usually do during my live streams, because I don't have to get through this thing quickly. This will probably be a pretty slow, chill, relaxed video. So paying that off, I see right now in the live chat we got Timer, can't wait, what's up, how's it going? We got Harjot, how's it going? DNT Arc, there's the dab. I can't dab sitting down, I'm sitting down, it's weird. Samuel, what's up, how's it going? Demago, how's it going? Good evening. You like this setup? Okay, yeah, this is a different camera angle than I've used before. I'm actually thinking about completely I guess just moving my desk from this wall to this wall. I think the main difference that you would notice is that from my typical like talking head shot would end up being pointed this direction rather than pointed at my, my IKEA mountain wall. So I'm not sure if that's a better thing or not, but I think I'm gonna like it better. We'll see. It's surprisingly a big pain in the butt to move a desk along with all of the wiring and equipment and stuff that I've got here. Make sure I've got lighting that works well. And there's a good chance it won't work out well and I have to go back to where it was before, but still might try and do it. So let's see. Josh, what's up? How's it going, Josh? The maker of the Prisma Azul. Darren Mitch, good afternoon from the Philippines. Cool. Yeah, that was actually another reason I was interested in doing this video at this time of day is, a lot of the times I do my reviews usually kind of like late afternoon, early evening California time, which works out well for some people, but I know it doesn't work out well for everybody. And that just happens to be the time when I kind of have the best energy for that, I suppose, and I've been able to prepare for it. This kind of video, I feel like I don't have to prepare that much, but maybe those are words I'm gonna eat. But I'm happy to do this a little bit later at night, and hopefully it works for some more people. I'm glad it's working out for you in the Philippines. Jonathan Lerner asking, do I have any plans in reviewing the Thea Audio Oracle? I am interested in reviewing the Oracle. We'll see. I just reviewed a couple of IEMs from Linsel, in fact, including the Tin T5. I got this from Linsel, so there's a good chance I'll get the new Thea Audio stuff, but I'm not sure. I'm not certain at this point. Omar, hi again. How's it going? Barbrock, or Marbrock. Why did I say that wrong? Barely 9 p.m. in Oregon. This is probably the closest I'll get to a Tin T5. How's it going? In Oregon. Okay, what part of Oregon? I've actually thought about moving to Oregon someday, but I don't know. Maybe all Californians say that, and all Oregonians say, please stay in California. What's up, Michael? All right, you know what? Let's Eontron, what's the Squiglink? Squiglink. Here, I'll paste a link to Squiglink for those who are unfamiliar with it. Basically, this is using the same software that Critical uses. And let me punch on over here. I'll zoom in over this. Nope, that's not it. This right here. This is the same software that Critical uses for displaying frequency response graphs. And in fact, let's go to critical.com and I'll show you. If you go to his website, go to Graph Comparison Tools, and then there is a free version, and he's got headphones and he's got IEMs separately. But basically, he graphs the frequency response of a ton of different IEMs, and you can kind of get a sense for what their sound signatures are like. Now, this software he worked on with a developer named Marshall, and they actually made it open source, so I was able to spin up my own fork and throw up my own measurements. So all these measurements that you see here on squig.link were taken by me with my microphone, which, just as a heads up, like there's a bunch of different of these Squig sites out there now, and everyone's microphones are a little bit different. It's unfortunately not like a super scientific, well-controlled thing, unless you're spending big bucks for like the Gross stuff. My microphone was like 90 bucks, maybe 100 bucks or something like that. And for that, you don't get the best quality control. But being able to see all those measurements taken on the same microphone, you can then compare them. It's a little bit harder to compare measurements from my rig to like Critical's or Precog Vision's, but from within an individual's set of measurements, it's pretty accurate to compare. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and unbox these 3 IEMs, and then I'll measure them and throw them up on Squiglink so that we can talk about them here in the stream. But then also, if you're interested in checking them out afterward, I've got that link in the live chat. You can just drop on to Squig, SQUIG .LINK, squig.link. But yeah, let's get started with the Tin Hifi T5. Actually, I don't need to build up the suspense too long. Let's just go ahead and go over here, and I'll give you a little bit of background on the Tin T5 based on what I do know about it so far, which at this point is honestly not a lot. But the Tin T5 is, obviously the latest in Tin's T series. In fact, fun fact, the Tin Hifi T2 was actually the first IEM that I ever reviewed on this channel. In fact, I think it was the first IEM I ever owned. So this series kind of has a little bit of a special place in my heart. The T5 is a single dynamic driver, and kind of like unlike, well, if you've been watching the series of Tin earphones, let me make sure this thing's focused well. Their earphones went from the T2 to the T3 to the T4, now the T5, and as they've been going up in numbers, the price has also been going up. So this price is $130 for the Tin Hifi T5. Like the others, like most of the others, it's a dynamic driver earphone. But it is, because it's just come out now, they do actually have sort of an early bird pricing on it for $110, and that is available on linsole.com as well as drop.com. So if you're interested in checking it out now, you can save 20 bucks, but it might also be worth waiting around for some reviews. And I think there are some reviews out there so far, but I just got mine. So let's go ahead and unbox it and see what's inside. Oh, that's pretty handsome, huh? Yeah, okay. It's a nice little, that's actually a pretty large carry case. Put that aside, pull these things up, and it looks like the earbuds are kind of neatly packaged in there. We've got some paperwork, and it looks like ear tips and wow, a bunch of accessories. This is actually, I'll say this is probably the most complete package I've seen with the Tin T series, and I guess it makes sense because the pricing on this is a little bit pricier than typical. They give you a little hairbrush. I guess you could use that for tickling your ears, making sure they're nice and soft and ready for the earphones to go in. You also get a set of tweezers, which is interesting because I don't see, I'm not sure what I would use those tweezers for. Usually when you get tweezers, it's because they are accompanied by like some filters or something that you could put onto the IEMs, but there's no filters here. There's just these tips which fall through the packaging. All right, let's punch these things out. I don't need to save this packaging. Looks like quite a few different sets of ear tips. Let's see if we can figure out what's going on with all of these. Let's see, we've got that sort and this sort. So you can see that there is a difference in the bore size. So I'm guessing there's going to be narrow bores and 3 or 4 different sizes of narrow bores, and then 3 or 4 different sizes of the wider bore ear tips, which is interesting. So on this stream, I'll go ahead and throw one of these sets on there and measure the earphone, but afterward, I'll probably end up measuring both of them because, I don't know, it's interesting to see what different effects you might get from different ear tips. All right, let's see. Have we figured this out yet? So it looks like we've got, I made a mess of this, didn't I? Yeah, it looks like we've got a set of 3 for the wide bore and a set of 3 for the narrow bore. Unsurprising. And then of course you got your paperwork, your requisite paperwork. There's your QR tags for the fans out there. Cool, someone tell me what that links to. Throw that aside. Take a look at what's inside this packaging. This little carry case. So this is honestly larger than I would probably want to use. And the material, it's a little bit sheer. I don't know if that's the right word. It doesn't feel, this definitely does not feel like a leather. Oh, it looks like we've got even more tips though. It looks like we've got a set of Tin Hifi's foam tips. And then, okay, here's where the tweezers are now making sense. If you look in there closely, there's also a set of filters. And I'm curious if these are, they look like they're stick-on filters, kind of like we see with a lot of the latest Moondrop stuff, as well as Tanchgem. But that is an interesting little carry case with a magnetic clasp. That's cute. And you get the Tin Hifi logo there. So this is, I don't know, pretty nice packaging. But again, that's a little bit on the large side for my personal tastes. Let's take this cable out. This will be actually kind of interesting to see because Tin Hifi has historically been doing a pretty good job with their cables. Ever since the Tin T3, I feel like they got criticized for the cable on the Tin T2, and then they kind of outdid themselves with the cable on the Tin T3. I guess the cable on the Tin T4 was a little bit shoddy. I don't know, it's just kind of stiff and memory prone. We'll see how this one is. And I'm trying to get this Velcro off. Come on, Velcro, be my homie. But there you go, let's see. It's a little bit on the thin side, but it seems like a nice enough cable. I've got it tangled up. I'm gonna take the L on that one. But you do have a chin cinch. Zoom out on that. It's a little bit too loose to really be that useful. I mean, I'm sure it'll stay in place once you've got some sort of outer pressure on this cable, but it's not going to stay in place when you put the cable away, which is a little annoying. You've got your fairly small Y-split down here, which I like, and then you can just kind of see that the cable itself is, it's lying nice and flat. It is on the thinner side. I think that's going to come across here, but I don't know that that's necessarily a bad thing. It seems like it's a wound rather than braided, so if I do this, you'll see it split, but that's just kind of showing the construction. And then you've got your 3.5 millimeter termination down here. Let's go ahead and do a roadie wrap on this and see how well it sits. Not too shabby. And then let's go ahead and take a look at the earpieces of the Tin Hifi T5. Just pop them out like that. And there you go. This is actually a pretty interesting look from Tin Hifi. This is very different from what they've been doing with their with the Tin T series before. I guess the Tin T2 Plus, that was a little bit of a deviation from their typical style, but this seems almost like alien. And I'm actually pretty surprised at like how deep of a cavity that is for a dynamic driver. I guess it's just a single dynamic driver actually. There's no like dual dynamic drivers or any of that goofiness going on. It's just a very interesting large cavity. I'm curious to see what that has on what effect that has on the sound. And I have a feeling if there is an effect from that cavity, it's probably not just going to be reflected in the frequency response, which is all we're going to see with the Squiglink graph, is we'll see the frequency response. But if there's, I don't know, some like interesting soundstage characteristic or something from that large cavity, that's the thing I'll probably only be able to pick up with some extended listening time. So we'll have to wait for the review to figure that out. But I don't know, what do you think? My desk is kind of a mess right now. This is definitely a messier unbox than my typical. But there you go. There is the Tin Hifi T5 unbox. Let me throw this stuff in here. Just leave out enough for me to do a measurement. I'm not sure which tips I'll need. And put this stuff away. Put this stuff away. We're making way for the measurement rig. And then I guess the next set of IEMs that we'll be unboxing. But yeah, I don't know. Honestly, I think this is a pretty nice looking IEM. It's not what I would have expected from Tin Hifi. And that could be a good thing or a bad thing. But I don't know. I think that's actually pretty handsome. Let me throw on. I'll start with, I think that was the medium tips. Now I'll leave out the large tips in case I need them for the measurement. Oh, what just happened to my video signal? All right, video signal's back. I don't know what that was about. But yeah, DNT Arc, I see you're saying hot damn chonky boys. These are kind of chonky. Let me actually, before measuring them, I'll give them a fit test here on the A cam so you can see how these things fit inside my ears. I know my lighting is probably not ideal for this, but there you go. I'd say fit-wise, that's not bad. Isolation is not especially strong, which is interesting because of how chonky they are. Yeah, definitely not strong isolation. But comfort-wise, it seems fine. All right, yeah, let's go ahead and throw it onto my microphone. No, 571, 10 T5K hertz. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. We're about to see. Let's go ahead and plug this thing in here. And yeah, these tips are surprisingly thin-walled tips. Hopefully that's not an issue for the measurement system, but we'll see. All right, I think I've got this thing set up. I didn't actually test because I am doing this super casual style. Didn't actually test my measurement rig before setting up here. So there's a chance things might not go quite so smoothly, but that's what you signed up for. Let's go, actually check my preferences, make sure I'm good, and I'm not, so that was good, I tested that. All right, preferences look good now. You're gonna warn me, continue anyway, and we will, let's see. Let's start our measurement. And that was a pretty loud measurement. Switch over to the All SPL tab and I'll throw a little line here at 8K hertz. So you can see, look at that, I got my peak exactly at 8K hertz. Feel pretty good about that one. But yeah, there you go. There's your frequency response of the Tin Hifi T5. Tin T5 with wide bore tips. So I'll label it like that. I will save it. Oh, you already had the name. And I tried to erase you. All right, you're good. Let me file export this as well because I need to export this as a text file in order for Squiglink to be able to process it. So there we go. There's a frequency response. We've got, it looks like a fairly fairly large bass hump that starts at around 600 hertz. That is a very early rise for bass, if I'm honest. So I think this is going to be pretty mid-bassy. Extends okay into the sub bass, although there's a little bit of roll off there. So I think that this might be more punchy than rumbly. But then also that looks like that's quite a bit of treble. Metal 571, you were right. This is the Tin T5 K hertz. We'll see how much it hurts. But let's go over here to Squiglink and I can kind of show you. I don't know, this isn't that exciting, this isn't that interesting, but this is kind of the behind the scenes of how this stuff gets updated. Basically, there is this file called the phone book, and this basically just has kind of an index of all the files that I have in my library. How did I name that file? Did I name it Tin T5 or did I name it Tin Hifi T5? Let me make sure it's consistent. I did not call it Tin Hifi T5, so I will fix that over here on my other screen. And then I've got Tin Hifi T5 that matches here, and I come over here, refresh, and if I search for Tin Hifi, here are all my Tin Hifi. All right, so here's what a T4 looks like in the frequency response. This I would describe as kind of like a bright, mild V. This bass shelf, I think it actually measures a little bit higher than I hear it, but there you go. And then if I click this button, if I did it right, there you go. There is your Tin T4. If I hit this button, we can measure them and kind of compare them side by side. So, and then we can hit this little squiggle. So let's say you've heard the Tin Hifi T4 before. All right. This is, by hitting this button down here, basically, so I've got the Tin T5 and the T4 measurements both displayed at the same time. If I hit this button down here, it's gonna set the T4 as my baseline. And now this red line with the variations is basically showing you what how the T5 compares to the T4. So we can see based on this measurement, as I suggested, there's a fair bit more mid-bass over here. And not so much more sub-bass. The mid-range maybe is a little bit more recessed here. That's what you see here with the red line dipping below the green over here. And then you see quite a bit more treble, just kind of, you know, from about 2.5 kHz. I guess this counts kind of as upper mid-range until about 4.5 K. But then this right here is just a lot more treble. And then in the air region, it looks like they're kind of about on par. So there you go. If you're also kind of curious as like another comparison, frame of reference, I have this preference target down here. I call it working O2. Let me actually hide these for now so we can just take a look at this. And this is all available on squig.link if you want to check it out for yourself. But this curve right here is what I kind of think would be my ideal frequency response. Now I haven't heard an earphone that has this exact frequency response, so maybe I wouldn't actually like it, but this is roughly what I'm looking for, right? I'm looking for a fairly flat, like I like some bass increase, right? So here, from my sub bass to about 1000 hertz, I've got maybe maybe a 5 decibel rise. What do I have there? I should know what I've done, but it's not a very large rise. And so I like it mostly pretty flat through the mid-range and the lower mid-range. And then, you know, get a bit of a, we call this the ear gain, pinna gain, however you want to call it. This is about how much I'd like to see it. And I like to see the treble drop off around like right after 5K, because I find if there's a little bit, if the treble doesn't fall off here at 5K, it can, not always, but it can lead to kind of strident vocals, a little edginess in the vocals. So yeah. And then the treble line at basically past this point, treble usually gets a little bit nutty, but I like to see it not completely fall off. So if we pull back up that Tin T5 measurement, here's how you can see it compare to my target. And you can see down here in the bass region, the mid bass and the sub bass, and that is a lot more bass than I usually look for. But you know me, I'm not necessarily a big bass person, so this might appeal to more people than it does to me. it looks like the ear gain is actually almost exactly what I'm looking for, which is actually kind of interesting. But it doesn't have much chill in the treble area. So this, I'm guessing, is gonna be kind of a spicy earphone, but I haven't heard it yet. This is not a review. This is just the frequency response, and now you know what that looks like. And I am gonna spend, I don't know, probably about a week living with the Tin T5, and then I'll come back with the full review. But yeah, let me catch up with live chat. I've been kind of watching it in the background, but it's hard to do live chat, talk about a frequency response, update JSON, et cetera, et cetera. But yeah, let me see what I've missed out on. Riffy Tuffy saying it's nice packaging. Yeah, I think the packaging was generally pretty nice on this. Tin's always been pretty good on the packaging, even back to the original T2. Here in dark mode, yeah, this is dark mode here in Super Review. And Eontron, I agree, it does kind of look like a jewelry box generally. And yeah, Josh, you were right. That metal was right. That is the Tin T5K hertz. Oh, it's interesting, Metal, that you say you have a similar issue with the treble on the T4. So if I pull up the T4 graph, yeah, it is, I mean, compared to kind of my target, in the 5K region, it is elevated definitely. But this is pretty considerably less elevated than what we have here on the T5. But I don't know, maybe that extra body here in the upper mids might balance it out. I'm not showing you any, I'm just looking at it. That's all blurred, you didn't see, whatever. This is what I was looking at. Yeah, you can see that the T4, it is still pretty elevated here in the 5K, but I don't know, I don't remember having particular issues with that part of the frequency response, but it has been a while since I listened to it, so I don't know. Tato Korovsky saying that graph is basically biodynamic Xalento. Is it Xalento or just Xalento? How am I supposed to say that? Metal 571 saying classic JSON. That's right, fellow developer, actually real developer. I just play one on TV. And yeah, Metal, I agree with the, you say you like the T2 because it sounds entirely different than the T4. It does. Let's go back to here, and let's go ahead and hide that and bring up the Tin T2. You can see that, let's hide the curve too. The Tin T2 versus the T4, this is a pretty big difference in the tuning. So they've definitely changed over the years. Here with the Tin T2, it's kind of more of a flat, almost referencey style tuning, whereas with the T4, it went with more of a bright, definitely more bass emphasis, kind of mild V tune. And Metal, you said that my preference curve kind of reminds you of the ER3XR. I think Android told me the exact same thing. I haven't heard the ER3. Maybe I would love it, but I mean, it's definitely inspired by Etymotic's general curve, but with kind of like the bass and the lower mid-range of the Moondrop Blessing too. That's kind of like the motivation behind it. Al Magcope saying kind of disappointed with the treble region. Yeah, I mean, just based on the frequency response, it looks like a lot, but we'll see how it sounds. And then you're also asking, why is the shell so big with a single DD? They said something in their marketing speak. I mean, I don't know how much to put into it, but they did in their marketing speak. They talk about the cavity. I think they talk about like the cavity of the IEM. So I assume there's something with the acoustics going on in there. And that's where there might be something more interesting about the sound of this IEM besides just the frequency response. I'm pretty interested to find out because definitely, I don't think I'm going to be able to hold this up on camera for you. It'll just be blurry mess. Here you go. Nope, that doesn't help you at all. There you go. That's not very informative. There you go. How's that look? Actually, you know what? This is manual focus. Let's see, how close can I get it? I guess that close is how close I can get it. There's the Tin T5. I think it's a cool look. And yeah, it is definitely a weird, interestingly chonky earpiece, but fit-wise, it seems fine. Let's get us back into focus. All right, so that was the Tin Hifi T5. Let's go ahead and take a look next at the Hiby Crystal6. I should be a little bit more specific. Let's throw this stuff away real quick. All right, so the Hiby Crystal6. Let me pull up my notes so I don't get this thing wrong, but this was sent to me by HiFi Go. If you want to check it out, I should have a link in the description down below to HiFi Go. You can check out the Crystal6. This is, from what I understand, Hiby's kind of first foray into a flagship type IEM. Whatever flagship means to you. What it generally means to me is it's going to be expensive, and that kind of is the case here. So the Crystal6 is a $460 IEM. For that, you get 6 balanced armature set. So 460, 6 BAs, Hiby's flagship. I don't know, let's see if there's anything to find out here on the back of the box. It is a little iridescent and actually kind of cool. They do have a high-res audio certification, which you know is super important. But otherwise, I don't know that, if you want to call Hiby and ask them what's up, there's their phone number. But not really much information here on the box, so let's just go ahead and pop it open and see what's inside. Make music more musical. There you go. Let's take these earpieces, throw them out, because who cares about the earpieces? I want to see the paperwork. Where's my paperwork? We've got a little carry case. Actually, no paperwork underneath of that. We've got quite a set of tips here. Put that to the side. We've got a box of accessories. Let's see, try and stay organized. Let's start with the box of accessories, because I imagine this is where my paperwork's going to be, and it's the best part. Ooh, that's where the toothbrush is. And I was right, there's my paperwork. Wow, accessories includes paperwork and 1 toothbrush, which I have a feeling this will wear out pretty quickly. There's your user guide. There's a lot more information here on the earphone. Let's see any of it interesting. So they claim they've got a 4-way crossover between those 6 balanced armatures. They've got the model numbers of the drivers, and I probably should understand what these mean more than I do, but I don't recognize those. I think that those are Knowles model numbers, but I don't know. Frequency response of 20 to 20,000 hertz doesn't mean too much. Sensitivity of 107 dB, assuming that's at the typical measurement. So pretty average sensitivity. Not too much there on the spec sheet, but that's okay. Well, let's find a place to put you. Oh, interesting. In here, it's actually kind of a nice little carry case. Reminds me a little bit of Moondrop's cases, but it does have a magnet, and you might be able to hear that Velcro sound. Oh, interesting. It seems like there are 2 cables in here. Let's throw this aside for a second. That's actually a pretty nice little carry case, but it also looks like the Crystal6 comes with 2 different cables. So a lot of manufacturers are coming with, people want both balanced or 3.5 millimeter, and some manufacturers are asking you to pick which one you want. Some manufacturers are including adapters inside the box. Looks like Hiby just went ahead and included 2 separate cables. So they've got a 4.4 millimeter Pentacon balanced cable, and then a standard single-ended 3.5 millimeter cable. Spoiler, this is the one I'm going to use, although that Pentacon does that's pretty freaking handsome, if I'm honest. All right, let's unwind this cable. And first impression is this cable seems pretty nice. It's a little bit on the soft side, quite pliable. It's got an interesting color to it. This is the stream where I struggle with Velcro. Let's pull this out. It's maybe a little bit kinky up here on top, but we'll see how that wears out with time and use. But yeah, that seems like a pretty nice little cable there. It's generally on the softer side. Kind of reminiscent of the cable that recently came on my Dunu EST112 in terms of like softness. Give it a little roadie wrap. It does look like we've got an integrated chin cinch. Zoom in on that so we can take a look. Pretty nice, no branding on that cable, which I like. I'm not a big fan of branding. And then you have that integrated chin cinch, which does seem to be pretty functional. It's not sliding itself down. So that's, all right, I'm into that. And then there is your wound up Hiby cable. That's pretty good. Here we've got quite a selection of ear tips, and they've got them labeled, which is nice, because I never, don't always understand why manufacturers include multiple tips. But it looks like you can do some tip rolling and potentially get some slightly different tuning out of them. So they've got a set that are called crisp. They've got balanced. There's base ear tips and memory foam tips. I think, interesting, I probably would have gone toward the balanced tips for the measurements, but there's no mediums. So I guess I'll start with I'll try and start with the crisp ones. What is, yeah, I don't know if that'll do well in the measurement rig, but throw that aside. And let's finally take a look at these earpieces. Oh, it actually looks like it's got balanced tips already built on or installed on it. So forget what I just said. Oh, ooh. All right, let's see. So initial impressions, just as I push those things out, is these things have got a little bit of weight to them. It's actually kind of a handsome, pretty nice build, huh? Look at that crystalline clear resin. It does look like it's solid. You can see the balanced armature array in there. Again, this is a 6BA set with a 4-way crossover. Let me pull off the tip so you can see the nozzle, typical shower head nozzle. And that is a little bit on the long side for a nozzle, but we'll see how that fits in just a second. And then you've got this pattern here on the outside, which I don't hate. I think yeah, it's interesting that the pattern, I don't know if this is coming across, but the pattern is kind of like behind the text and the logo, which is kind of more 3D, kind of has like this 3D effect on top of it. Frankly, I think this would look nicer without the words Hiby Music on it, just because I don't know, just as sort of like a brand snob, those words are pretty small, and I think it would just look a little cleaner without them. If it was just the logo, maybe even make that logo a little bigger. That's what brand folks like to hear, make the logo bigger. Let's go ahead and throw this thing on the cable and see if I can figure out which side is left, which side is right. Not always easy to tell, and sometimes it's really easy to tell. Let's see. That has an L on it. So I'm gonna take that L. And it looks like it is a sort of recessed, or not a recessed, it's like a protruded 2-pin, almost like a QDC style connector. I don't know that it's actually the same as QDC. And don't take that to the internet and tell all your friends. Is this thing fitting on correctly? What am I doing here? How late is it? I don't want to break you, Hiby. All right, there we go. It's a bit of a hard push. It kind of like locks in, which is interesting. Oh my gosh, Hiby, don't make me hurt you. I don't want to do it. This is actually interesting, curiously difficult to push these things on. I swear this isn't my first time using a 2-pin connector. All right, there it goes. There's just quite a bit of friction on that. But there you go, there is the Hiby Crystal6, which, I don't know, I think that's a pretty nice looking set. Let's go ahead and go over here to the A-cam, give them a little bit of a fit test and try and catch up with the live chat before we throw this thing onto the measurement rig. Let's see how these things fit. Okay, like I kind of expected, the nozzle's a little bit on the longer side. So this is, wow, this is fairly aggressive fit. I'm a little confused about what's going on the left side. I think I'm having trouble getting a seal with this tip, so I might need to go to a size smaller with the tips when I wear it myself, but I'll leave these mediums on because I think it'll probably measure better that way. But there you go. There is what the Hiby, nope, there we go. There's the Hiby Crystal6 inside my ear, my old man ear. Yeah, I would say isolation on this seems pretty strong. It definitely fills up quite a bit of my ear. And again, I think it doesn't seem like there's any venting in there. So that's probably part of why the isolation is so strong. Yeah, let me see what's going on in the live chat. Oh, Metal, I saw you're asking about, you said, what stack is that? I assume you're talking about the coding program I'm using. I'm actually using some software that I think is basically defunct at this point. I'm gonna have to find another solution for it. But if I jump back over to here, this software here is just called Brackets, brackets.io. It's some software that I think it was independently developed and then Adobe bought it. And of course, Adobe killed it. But it's pretty good for development in real time in terms of like front-end development, because you can write CSS and watch your changes take effect in real time. Like here, well, for example, right? Here's a file that I've got set up for a theme for Squiglink. You know, if I wanted to try and change the colors, let's see, I could just change this to a 1, and now everything over here on the left you can see updated in real time to a different color value. So that's one of the things, I mean, it's not just colors that are affected, you can do everything. All right, so if I wanted to, I can just make everything bigger if I wanted. Like, this is obviously not, this is not good web design. I'm just kind of using this to demonstrate the capabilities of brackets, which I really like. I love that real-time aspect of it. But it being essentially sunsetted at this point means I gotta find something else. And I'm sure there's something else that does that. I've just been too lazy to find it. Evan Magale, I see you asking between the Moondrop Aria and the Tin T5, which do I prefer? I haven't heard the Tin T5, so I have no idea. Based just on frequency response graph, the Aria looks a lot better, if I'm honest. I see people appreciated the make music more musical line. Mason Bauer, thanks for the clarification that those are Knowles drivers. I feel like I saw Knowles branding on Hi-Fi Go's website, maybe? My Life Matter clarifying, only the 22955 is Knowles, the rest are custom made. Okay. All right. Let me go ahead and throw the crystal onto my microphone, and then we'll measure this one just like we did with the Tin T4. So, plug you in down here. I hope you don't mind that I don't have this part on camera. Stuff you in just the right perfect amount. And then let's go back over here. And I think I saved this, so I can go ahead and remove that. And let's go ahead and measure the Hiby Crystal6. So that clipped, which means this is actually going to be a more sensitive IEM. So I'm going to do it at just 2 levels of volume, which might even not, what's going on? Let's see. I feel like I'm getting a lot of noise right now. Let me try rebooting real quick. Looks good. Yep, continue anyway, bro. All right, that looks better. So yeah, pretty sensitive IEM because I've got it at only volume level 2 on my Mac, which doesn't mean too much, but usually I record these things at like 3 to 4, sometimes level 5. It looks like I'm going to need to push that in a little bit further to get that peak exactly at 8K. So let's try that out. I might actually, ironically, need to swap to the smaller tips. The smaller tips that I was afraid were the only tips I had. Did that fix it? That did seem to get it. There we go, we got that. We got that exact, although that bass region looks a little squiggly. Let me do that again. Does that bass look better? That's pretty squiggly. All right, I'm gonna reseat this thing because it wasn't like that before. This is the joy of measuring earphones. And you can imagine if you take this even more seriously than I do, it's even more of a pain in the butt. That looks a little better, I think. Yeah, that's better. All right, cool. So let's label this one Hiby Crystal6. Is there space? Is it just Crystal6? I think it's Crystal6. And let's save that one. Let's export it as a text file. And then let's go over here to Squiglink. And this will be us entering a new entry into the phone book, because this is the first earphone from Hiby that I've got measured. I don't know if it's actually the first earphone from Hiby, but it's definitely the first one I've heard. And we got to keep our stuff alphabetical because we're like that. Hyphen will go before. No space, the Crystal6. And theoretically, I should be good over here. Take a look at that, and there we go. There's our frequency response graph, and here's where I can throw it up against my curve, so we can kind of see how it compares. That is an interesting tuning, if I'm honest. So the bass region down here, this looks like pretty typical BA bass. So I'm not too, it does roll off down here. It's a little bit more mid-bassy and rolls off. But because it is balanced armature bass, and this is a fairly common curve I see in balanced armature base. I'm not too worried about that being like cloudy or muddy, like I might be if that was dynamic driver. But interesting, the ear gain here with the Crystal6 is, that's a little goofy. It definitely starts later than I typically expect, so I have a feeling that's going to have some effect on the tonality of the vocals. And then you can see again here, actually it's a little bit past the 5K region, so this is in the 6 to 9K region is just a big chunk of treble. Now part of that is going to be exacerbated by the 8K resonance peak. This is a thing that happens with pretty much all measurements. There's almost always going to be a peak around 8K if that's where the measurer like me puts it. But the fact that it's so healthy over here to the left of that 8K means that that's probably also partially real. Like I think that there's going to be, I think this is going to be a little bit bright. Precog, I see you in the chat saying that looks bright AF, and I think you're probably right. So that is the Crystal6. Again, I haven't heard it yet, so I don't know exactly what it sounds like. That's just what it measures like. And I will throw this up on Squiglink. In fact, let me go ahead and do that right now. I haven't been throwing these up on Squiglink in real time. Let me go ahead and do that though. For anyone who's interested in checking them out, I gotta upload them here on my laptop. That's where I've got my FTP program. Let's see, I doubt this thing's updated. Of course you haven't. Google Backup and Sync. Does anyone use Google Drive and the Backup and Sync software? Supposedly they're working on a new version, and I'm thankful for that because the current version it's a little shoddy. But I do generally like the idea of Google Drive's backup stuff because basically the files that I've been editing over here, I've got them on a folder that's local in this iMac that I'm working on, but it's backed up to Google Drive. And then I have that same folder synced over here on my laptop. So when it's working correctly, I make a new measurement here, and then I go to my laptop and the measurement file's already there and ready for me. I do this with my music library as well. But when it's not working correctly, it's just kind of annoying. And I get to complain. But let me, let's see. Okay, it is still syncing. Looks like it's good. Okay, so I'm going to, nope, that was the wrong file. Sorry, not much for you to see at this point, but that's okay. Oh man, come on. Give me my datas. Did I upload that data to the wrong place? I don't think I did. I think it's in the right place. Tin T5, there we go. And then the Hiby Crystal6. Here we go. So that should be uploaded now. I'm gonna go over here, back to my Squiglink, and this is my local version. If I jump over here, this is the version that's actually live right now. So that's the URL, again, squig.link. And I'll refresh this, and if I look for the Tin T5, theoretically it should be there. There we go, the Tin T5 is there, as well as the Crystal6, and the Crystal6 is there. So you can take a look at both of these frequency response graphs. But for now, let's take a look at the Fiio FH5s, however you want to say that, FH5s. Before I do, let me catch up with live chat, see if there's anything I missed. Yeah, Diego Santos, I see Todorowski, thanks for clarifying. But yeah, I've already unboxed the Tin T5. You missed that one, but I guess if you rewind the live stream, you can take a look at it. But this is the earphone here. That doesn't help you too much, but there you go. Riffy Tuffy saying Visual Studio Code is pretty good. Look into it. Okay, I'll take a look. Is that, I know Visual Studio, I think that's Microsoft software, right? Does that work on a Mac? Because I'm a Mac guy. I know. My Life Matter, I see you saying that the 4.4mm balance cable should sound better than the 3.5mm balance cable. It sounds like the metals that they use in the cables are different. Maybe, I don't know. To be honest, I don't put a lot of stock in the whatever metals they want to use on their cables. I've not personally heard a difference from it, but not saying there's no difference. I just have never heard it. Necrosis asking, have I heard about the Tanch Gym Tanya? Yes, in fact, I've got one on order. I don't know how long it's going to take to get here, but it'll get here. Hell, Magcope saying 12 dB. Yeah, that's a lot. That's a lot of trouble on that Hiby. We'll see about that one. Did they measure this before they released it? I hope so. I hope you want to think they know what they're doing. Soropashi asking, do I listen to my music in MP3 or Flack format? Most of my music, so I recently did kind of an audit of my music library because I was curious. And I think I'm at about 25% MP3 and 75% Flack. I talked about this on a live stream ago, maybe 2 live streams ago. I'm not confident I can hear the difference between a good MP3 and a Flack file, but the difference in file size isn't that big for me, so I just kind of like err on the side of caution and I keep Flack files. Maybe at some point I'll find a headphone that's so high resolution that it's obvious to me and I'll be thankful that I save Flack files, but I don't know, for the most part it's just like the file size doesn't make a big difference to me. And even if I can't hear the difference, at least not with like really careful listening, it's sort of like a peace of mind. I don't have to ever worry about, is that some compression artifact of the MP3? It just doesn't matter. Crayos, wow, you're live after school, nice. So where are you where it's after school? Because it is currently almost 10 p.m. here in California. All right, let's clean up this table and then take a look at the Fiio FH5. Put this stuff away first. This is pretty nice packaging from Hiby, if I'm honest, even if they didn't necessarily nail the frequency response. A nice clean unboxing. I do like that iridescent color. Okay, put this aside. And now, let's pull out. That was actually a decent spin. Okay, there you go. There's the Fiio FH5s. And it's interesting, you can kind of see this like schematic is almost like carved into the box. That's interesting. That's a cool design. So the FH5s, let me pull up my cheat sheet on this one. You might be familiar with the Fiio FH5. It's an IEM that came out a couple years ago. People actually quite liked it, and I liked it too. The bass on it especially was really, really solid. Not necessarily like yeah, I guess it was, I think it would qualify as a bassy set, but it wasn't like beyond a neutral-ish tune. So it was kind of neutral-ish with a nice bass boost to it. And it was, again, I think a pretty good bass boost. So this is now the follow-up to it, similarly priced. This is a $260 IEM. I think the FH5, the original FH5 was maybe $250. And for that, it looks like we're looking at a 2 balanced armature and 2 dynamic driver set, which is interesting. There's a lot of hybrids obviously, but not a lot of them have dual dynamic drivers. Let's see, they do have some information here. Sorry, my lighting is not ideal for this casual live stream, but it does say it's Knowles balanced armatures, 3 sound adjustment switches, So it sounds like there might be some tuning options. I can see here it says 12 millimeter beryllium plated dynamic driver, and then a 6 millimeter beryllium plated dynamic driver. So wow, two completely separate dynamic drivers. Let's see if you can see that in the diagram. A big old 12 mil and a little smaller 6 mil. That's pretty interesting, actually. Around here on the back of the box, oh, this lighting, I apologize, folks. But it looks like this is kind of showing us what those switches are going to do to the frequency response. And I will probably end up measuring the default today here on the live stream, but I will end up measuring everything and throwing them all up on Squiglink. And I'll show you how you can click around on variations to compare them. But let's just go ahead and crack into this box and see what's inside the FH5s. What does that say? Born for music. Okay. You got magnets. Pretty nice little presentation here. Let's go ahead and start with this case, which I think this seems like it's the same case that came with the FD5. Throw that aside for now. We've got an eyebrow brush and a, oh, that's interesting. It's actually got a cover on it. I've never seen that before. So this is, you know, a tool for pulling out gunk from your earphones. A lot of the times it's like a hook. This is just kind of like a, almost like a needle. It's not sharp, but they do come with a little silicone cover on it just in case. Well, that was thoughtful. Down here, so this is suggesting to me that this is going to come with a similar cable mechanism that we had on the FD5, where you can swap out to a 4.4 mil Pentacon or a 2.5 mil balance connector, which is pretty cool. Fio's solution for this is actually pretty decent. I don't know if I liked it quite as much as Dunu's, but there were some advantages. So let's go and pull this out. Let's throw you to the side for now. And this just looks like blocks of foam, but here we've got, of course, ooh, we've got our paperwork. Thank you. Paperwork. Let's see. There's your QR codes, real quick. There you go. Looks like a standard instructions on how to wear an IEM. I'm pretty well practiced in this, so I think I'll be okay. And then here is some information about how to use the swappable tips on the cable, which I'll demonstrate in a little bit. There's also some information on how to use the MMCX connectors, which is actually kind of nice. So let me take a look inside this box. So I have a feeling there's going to be some accessories inside here. And I'm kind of wrong. Oh, interesting. I don't know what this is. Maybe this is actually a tool for the MMCX. In fact, that does look like it. So I think the FD5 that I got, it also came with a tool for removing MMCX connectors, but it was, I think, Final Audio's tool. This looks like it's Hiby's own tool, or not Hiby, Fio's own tool. That's interesting. Personally, I've never really had an issue getting, I mean, sometimes MMCX connectors can be a pain in the butt, but I've got a pretty good technique at this point. But here's the little carry case, which has got a couple of compartments here for the earpieces, if you're into being super, super careful with your earpieces. And otherwise, it's a pretty nice feeling case. Nope, it's not real leather, but it does actually smell pretty good. Let's throw this aside over here. The ear tips, kind of like the Hiby we just looked at, they've got a bunch of different styles and they do have them labeled. I don't know if those labels are going to come across in my lighting here, but yeah, so you can see we've got vocal ear tips up here. We've got bass ear tips, memory foam tips, biflange, and balanced. Interesting. I want to see the biflange. Oh, interesting. Okay, Hiby. Okay. Or not Hiby. Why do I keep saying Hiby? These are Fio. I think, well, we'll see if these things have any tips on them already. I have a feeling they're going to have a set of the balanced tips on them. If I learned anything from the last video, or the last unboxing. But here, I guess let's just take a look at the FD5 and go ahead and unbox this thing. I'm just going to say, at first impression, this is a pretty frickin' handsome IEM. There's something a little bit Decepticon-y about these, which is a Transformers reference for you. Tip fell off when I unboxed it, but that was supposed to be on there. Unwind this and struggle with yet another tiny, tiny Velcro. And then we've got our 3.5 millimeter with a plastic sheath on it. Don't need that. But here we go. So this cable, it's pretty soft and it's a little bit tangly at the moment, but we'll see how well it does once it's been properly roadie wrapped. See, it seems to lie pretty flat. It's maybe a little bit on the stiff side, but not too shabby. It's got kind of like this pearl look, like very, very transparent and clear. It's actually kind of nice looking. And then as I was alluding to, Fio's been including these swappable terminations, which is kind of cool because it kind of just looks like a typical 3.5 millimeter termination. It doesn't even look especially different, but if you unscrew the top here, right? So I've got that completely unscrewed, and then you pull firmly there, you can remove the 3.5 termination and then swap in a balanced one if you so choose. I'm gonna go ahead and stick with the 3.5, however. And hopefully I don't break anything. Yeah, it's not quite as slick as Dunu's system, but it looks a little bit neater because you still, I mean, if you prefer having a straight jack, and I do generally prefer a straight jack to an angled jack, that's one benefit of Fio's, but also it's just like smaller and a little bit sleeker. It's like basically zero bulk cost to being able to swap. All right, let's give it the roadie wrap. Oh, you can't see actually, before we fully wrap it up, take a look at the chin cinch on here, which seems to be maybe a little bit on the loose side, but mostly pretty functional. Okay, we'll see if that annoys me or not. And then I guess we can punch in and actually take a look at these earpieces now. So my cable's, you can see it's a little bit on the stiff side and it's fighting me. It's fighting the roadie wrap. But there you go. There are the earpieces themselves, which are pretty freaking cool. I think that Fio is advertising this as like a semi-open design. I'm curious to see if like sound actually leaks out of this or if that openness does anything for the sound. But the earpieces generally, you know, kind of in line with the design language that they've been using on the FH line. There's your nozzle with the typical grill on top. And of course you've got your MMCX connectors, as we kind of alluded to. So I mentioned generally I don't have a big issue removing the connectors, even though they can be pretty tight and firm sometimes. I just find like giving it a little bit of like almost like a rotational style wiggle as you pull on it can usually break it off pretty easy. But yeah, there is the FH5s. Let me jump over here, give it a little fit test as I pull into my entirely too narrow depth of field. And I can say fit-wise, this fits a lot like an FH3 in my ear, which is generally a pretty good fitting IEM, not necessarily the most secure fitting IEM, but generally pretty good comfort-wise. Let's see, there you go. I feel like this lighting and coloring is not flattering to my aged skin, but there you go. I think that is a very nice looking IEM. And fit-wise, it's comfortable. Isolation actually is a little bit stronger than I expected, but probably not stand out. Oh, and let's go ahead and go back to the table real quick, and I'll show you those tuning switches that were alluded to on the box. So there are 3 different switches here on the back that will ostensibly change the sound of this earphone, and they are quite recessed. Curiously, they don't seem to give you I guess maybe you could use this thing. Maybe that's why they included this, and that's for flipping the switches on. I'm gonna guess that's what that's for. But we'll leave it in the stock configuration for now, and that's how we will measure it for now. But like I said, I'm gonna go ahead and after this stream, maybe tomorrow because it's getting late, but I will update Squiglink with frequency responses from all of the configurations. But let me go ahead and connect this thing up. Let me catch up with live chat actually as I hook this thing up and before I get into the measurement. Also, Crayars, you're in Singapore. It's lunchtime. Tadakarovsky saying, I can't really tell the difference between a 100 megabyte FLAC and a 10 megabyte MP3 with $1,000 of gear setup. Yeah, there's, as long as the MP3 file was compressed well, there's not a lot to hear between them. Certainly some people will claim that they can hear a lot, and I guess I believe them, but just in my experience with my ears, not much for me to hear. Oh, My Life Matter. You're saying that Hiby, or what I'm calling it Hiby, in the native Chinese would be more pronounced Hiby. Hiby. Should I try and work that into my vocabulary? That'll be hard for me to learn. Hiby. Sammy Anderson in San Jose, how's it going? I'm also Bay Area. Big Boss, what's up? How's it going? And Sorrel, I don't think I'm gonna check out the nice HCK X49. I'm not actually familiar with that one. Omar asking, are those the first IEMs that can change the frequency response? No, there's actually quite a few IEMs. That switch mechanism that's here on the back of the FH5s, there's actually quite a few other IEMs that are like this. In fact, I just recently reviewed the Thea Audio Legacy 4. That one also has some switches on the back that lets you adjust the frequency response. But let me go and plug this thing into my microphone. Let's see how easily we can get a measurement. Here, go back over to Rue, and we can remove that because we saved it, and let's measure. And, well, looks like we're actually a little bit too deep. Let me pull this out, reinsert. But that is actually kind of a large, surprisingly large treble peak. Let's go ahead and measure it again. I'll measure it slightly louder. Okay, and that looks pretty good. So we got our peak lined up exactly at about 8K. Let's label this bad boy. Stock. And there is your frequency response for Fiio FH5s. Let me get it into Squiglink so we can compare it easily with other ones. Jump back over here, go to the local version. And so here is, let me remove this real quick. Here was the frequency response as measured from my microphone for the FH5. You can see fairly heavy on the bass, but relatively flat mid-range and kind of a mild upper mid-range gain here with the FH5s. Similar bass shelf, although a little bit more mid-bassy based on this frequency response graph, but quite a bit more forward in the upper mid-range and lower treble region. This 8K peak, that's big enough that it looks like it could be real, but we'll see how that sounds. And then the treble extension actually looks kind of curiously similar to the FH5 treble, but a little bit higher. Okay. Let me see if that's actually auto-synced over to my laptop and if I can upload that. Otherwise, we might have to wait for that one. Let's see. Let's go Google backup and sync. It's not going. Computers, right? But yeah, I mean, I guess that's about as much as we're gonna find out about these 3 IEMs without me actually listening to them. So that's what I'm gonna do now. I mean, like right now, immediately, I'm probably gonna go to bed. It's almost 10:30, which is about usually when I fall asleep. But wanted to say, really appreciate y'all hanging out with me and keeping me company while I stayed up late, catching up with these unboxings and measuring these IEMs. Got them graphed, uploaded into Squiglink, and if you're interested in checking out anything in Squiglink, it's always available, not just when I'm doing live streams, so check it out at squig.link. You can take a look at the frequency response of these measurements, or these IEMs, as well as other ones. It looks like this thing is updating. Did it update? Oh my. But I guess that's gonna do it. Let me catch up with live chat before I finally say goodbye, make sure I'm not leaving anyone hanging. But yeah, it's probably gonna be just about the end of this live stream. Big Boss, you want an IEM or a headphone with a clap on, clap off switch? Man, you are a 90s kid, aren't you? Marbrock asking, saying, Aisha's asking, is it cool for ladies to be here for IEMs? Of course, absolutely. IEMs audio knows no gender. Orewa asking, is a 2-pin connector more durable than MMCX? You broke your Tin Hifi T4's female connector, the T5, worth an upgrade. So I can't say whether or not the T5 is a good upgrade if you like the T4 sound, because I haven't heard the T5 yet. I don't know. It does look like it's pretty different sound. I would say, if just based on what I have heard, a pretty good upgrade from the Tin T4. If you like that sound signature, check out the Tanchjim Hana. That's I think a really nice upgrade and a pretty similar sound signature. And it's also got 2-pin if that's what you're looking for. If you're looking for getting away from MMCX, because I know some people have issues with MMCX. For me personally, if I've ever had issues with MMCX, it's been from like a brand new out of the box cable and there was like some manufacturing defect, but I've also had those same manufacturing defects with 2-pin. So I don't know, I guess I'm starting to slightly prefer 2-pin just because I think more of my favorite IEMs come in 2-pin. So if I get another cable, I want it to work well with all my IEMs, but I don't really have a strong preference, honestly. Mason, you're saying you saw Fiio posted a pronunciation of the brand somewhere, but you can't remember. I would love to see that. There was, yeah, so, okay, so My Life Matter, you're actually, I think you're making the point that I think I had seen at one point. You're saying that it's known as Fiio in Chinese. I'm pronouncing that as Fiio. I think I'd heard that before as well. So, wait, was it Hiby and Fiio? Is that how we do it now? Omar, you're asking, why is that 8K peak so common? So, Todorovsky, you're saying that it adds detail. It's actually, that's not really what it is. Let me run back over here to Squiglink and clear my search and basically just click through all of my IEMs. And you're gonna see, well, if you look at 8K, pretty much all of them are gonna have a peak. Whether it's a big peak, small peak, like that's a small little baby one. That's a small little baby peak. There's another small baby peak. There's a kind of big one. That's a really big one. Most of the measurements, and you're gonna see this on Critical's measurements as well, have a peak at around 8K. And the reason why is that when you, I don't know a lot about the science and the anatomy of an ear or how well this microphone coupler does or doesn't simulate that, but basically when you insert an earphone into the microphone, depending on how deep you insert it, there's always going to be a resonance peak. And it can kind of occur anywhere. It doesn't have to be at 8K hertz. But what Critical does, and what I've done because he does it, is try to measure it at a depth where that peak is always at a very consistent spot, 8K hertz. Just so that when you're looking at one measurement to the other, and you see a peak, you know that that is the resonance peak of the microphone coupler, and it's not necessarily an actual peak in the frequency response of that earphone. I hope that makes sense. Basically, it just seems like it's an inevitable side effect of measuring on these microphones, and for consistency's sake, measurers like Critical and myself try to keep it always at 8K hertz. We can vary it depending on how deep we insert it, right? Like if we use an etymotic earphone, it's going to necessarily insert deeper, and that resonance peak is going to happen later. In fact, if we jump back over here, right? So here is a pretty typical 8K hertz peak, but if I pull up something from etymotic, let's say the ER4XR, that peak is going to happen closer to around 10K hertz. And that's just because the etymotics necessarily fit so deep into the coupler that we can't get it to line up at 8,000 hertz. Omar asking, am I going to review the Tin Hifi P2? No current plans to. I mean, it looks interesting, but it also sounds like it wasn't that well received. So not going to go out of my way for that one for now. Marco asking, if I listen to a lot of podcasts and audiobooks along with music, would I recommend the Blessing 2 or the Tonstum Hana? Maybe the Final A4000. The Blessing 2, yeah, I don't know. I don't think any of those earphones do anything particularly strong for podcasts and audiobooks, but then I listen to a lot of podcasts, and I'm not particular about the sound quality when I do that, to be honest. I listen mostly on bone conduction headphones, which don't sound great, but they're very convenient. So I don't think any of those three earphones really does anything particularly well for podcasts. So I would just go with the one that I think is my favorite, which is the Blessing 2. Bunker Buster, what do the Tin T5s look like? So in case you missed it, here, let's go ahead and throw them all on camera together. Let's go ahead and zoom in on that. Paperwork, get out the way. So here are the three IEMs that we unboxed today. Here we've got the Tin Hifi T5 with a very unique kind of alien style fit and a very surprisingly large, interesting cavity. Despite the frequency response that doesn't look awesome, I'm kind of interested to check out how this thing sounds. And then here we've got the Hiby Crystal6, which has got kind of a pretty traditional resin shell, completely solid, very nice, very attractive looking, quite clear. So there's that one, and then over here finally we've got the Fiio FH5s in a shell that is honestly, fit-wise is quite a bit like the Fiio FH5s. So there's your recap. Marco, you're saying, so you're following up on the podcast question, you found some IEMs to be very fatiguing when hearing just speech for a long time. Yeah, maybe. Again, look, these are my bone conduction headphones. These are what I listen to podcasts with because they sit in front of my ear. They don't plug my ear, and they don't sound fantastic. It's basically just mid-range. There's not a lot of bass, not a lot of treble. But it ends up working out, I think, really well for vocals and for, well, specifically for podcasts and spoken word. So this honestly is my recommendation. If you're listening to a lot of audiobooks and podcasts, get a pair of these. They are so good. They don't sound good for music though. And frankly, you could, look at this. All right, I don't know that I would recommend this, but you could do this. I don't know, maybe I don't have a good reason to not recommend it. I've just never done it. So let's imagine these are Moondrop Blessing 2s. You can wear these things in your ear, like so, and then you could still wear the bone phones over the top of them. And like, I'm not joking, like this will work. Like I'll still be able to hear, I'll hear the earphones exactly as they're meant to be heard, and then I'll also hear the bone conduction. It'll sound a little bit differently when your ears are occluded like this, but there is actually an EQ built into the bone phones that's made to change the sound a little bit for when you are wearing earplugs, and I would probably use that if I was doing that little combo thing there. Again, I don't think I would necessarily do it myself, but you could. Jason saying you are torn between the Rye Solo, so that's a Meze IEM, and the Canara Freya. What do I think you should get? So I have not heard the Rye Solo. I haven't heard any of Meze's IEMs, so I can't say anything about that. I can say I do not like the Canara Freya. Do not like it. I don't think it sounds good. It's beautiful, but it doesn't sound good. John Gotti, you love your Sennheiser HD 560S. Cool. Glad if my recommendation helped you with that pick. That is a very, very solid pick. In fact, I've got them sitting over there, back there in the darkness. Oh, there you go. This rack here is where I keep all my headphones. Frieza asking, have I ever tried the Tonsjim T300 ear tips? I'm not familiar. Are those the same tips that come with the Darling? Let me see. Yeah, I think these are the same ear tips that come on the Darling. So I tried them when I was reviewing the Darling, but I haven't really tried them on anything else. Todd asking, how does the bone conduction feel? For the most part, I mean, maybe I've just been using it so long that maybe I don't feel it anymore, but this particular set, this is the Aeropex, does it less than some of the earlier sets. Some of the earlier sets were a little bit stronger in the bass, and when there's low frequencies and if you have the volume up high, you can actually like physically feel it like vibrating, and almost is kind of like a tickling sensation. I typically don't have them up that loud enough to tickle anyway. And then also because I'm mostly listening to podcasts, there's not a lot of bass in them. So for the most part, I don't feel them at all, but there is some slight vibration to them that, again, I think if you got the volume cranked and you're listening to something bassy, and especially if you're using one of the older models, you will feel it, and it will probably tickle a little bit. But if you're not doing that, you probably won't feel it. Jason asking, do I have any suggestions in the same price range as the Freya? So let me look up the Freya real quick, because it's been a while. Let's go over here. Might as well do this together, right? I think I got the Freya from Hi-Fi Go. So yeah, 250 bucks for the Canara Freya. So at 250 bucks, you got some pretty good options. I'm just going to throw out a handful and you kind of pick which ones seem the most interesting to you. There's the Thea Audio Legacy 5 that I just reviewed. I think that one's pretty solid at $250. You can get the JVC FDX1 on drop for about $250. I think that's probably my #1 pick at that price range. What else is there at $250? I mean, you can also, you know, obviously get the stuff that's under $200 and save yourself a couple bucks and get something like the Tonsjum Hana. I think the Tonsjum Oxygen you can probably get at around $250 as well. Let me take a look at my reviews. It's just kind of like a recap. See if there's anything at around $250 that I would throw into the fray there. You're not too far from $300, at which point you could start looking at like the Moondrop Blessing 2, the Prisma Audio Azul, if you're looking for something more on the neutral side. Let's see. Yeah, I don't see anything else jumping out at me at around $250. I mean, I think FDX1 and the JVC FDX1 and the Fiio, wait, where was I going? The JVC FDX1, sorry, and the Thea Audio Legacy 5 would probably be my top picks at $250 exactly. Martin Ferreira saying, first stream here, glad you could make it. Where are you at? I'm just kind of curious because I'm doing this late at night. My assumption was that I would have some new folks in here because it's just a different time of day and it works for different people in different parts of the world. Sammy's asking, what is my favorite IEM? That's a tough question. It honestly can depend on my mood. But I think my favorite IEM, at least that I own, is the Moondrop S8. Like if I could only have one of my IEMs, you take everything away, I'd be pretty happy with the Moondrop S8. Ryan Black asking, do I have a preference between Planars and Dynamics when it comes to headphones? I don't think so. I don't think I have a preference, to be honest. And part of that is, you know, I have not heard nearly as many headphones as I have heard IEMs. So I guess I haven't fully developed a sense for what the difference between Planars and Dynamics is. My kind of sense is that Planars are almost a little bit like balanced armatures. They're like almost the headphone version of balanced armatures, where they're really good at speed and maybe detail, maybe a little bit better at detail than dynamic drivers, but maybe a little bit not quite as good in the timbre category or whatever. Basically, they can sound a little bit off, kind of like a BA can sound. It's not usually like in IEMs. I think I generally prefer BAs to dynamic drivers, and that's just mostly based on like most of my favorite sets happen to be BA sets. But yeah. Martine, you're asking, is AliExpress the only place where you can get the Moondrop SSR at a similar price? I mean, I guess it depends on where you are in the world. I think in the US, the SSR is, I'm pretty sure, available on Amazon. But yeah, it's going to really depend on where you are in the world. You could also check out Shenzhen Audio. It's another retailer that sends me stuff often. I believe they ship worldwide, so you can check them out. I don't know if that's any easier than using AliExpress, but it might be. They're usually pretty good with shipping too. Ryan Black saying the ER2XR is around $100 these days and beats most at around $250. Yeah, the ER2XR is pretty excellent for its price. There's certain things definitely that the FDX1 and the Legacy 5 I think do better than the ER2XR, especially in terms of like detail, staging, separation, stuff like that. But The ER2XR, I think it does hold its own. Frieza, you're asking, would I say that the Moondrop Aria is worth 250 bucks? I personally wouldn't pay 250 for it. I mean, I think it's a pretty good sounding set, and you know, I think I gave it 4 stars at 80 bucks. I'd probably still give it 4 stars at 250 bucks, honestly. Like it's just a very solid set. It's just I don't find it very exciting for my personal tastes. But if it cost 250 bucks and the other versions didn't exist, I wouldn't think it was like out of line. No, I think it could totally be worth 250. But you don't have to pay that. Yeah, it's an $80 IEM. Daniel asking, up to $100, what would be my choice? Etymotic ER2XR. Marco, you're in Australia. Good day. My Life Matters saying, once you try bone conducting earphones, there's no going back. I mean, if you want sound quality, there's going back, but just for the convenience, the pure convenience and listening to podcasts, watching YouTube and stuff like that, I am still wearing them. See, I literally will forget that I'm wearing them. That's how good they are. That's funny. I didn't even realize I was still wearing them. Daniel from Brazil. Oh, you're up late. Hola. First stream, but it's because you're a night guy. It's 2:30 a.m. there. Yeah, that's pretty late in Brazil. But obrigado for watching. Oh, Jason, you're in the Philippines. Yeah, hopefully those options are available there. Bunker Buster, I have not tried the COS plugs. For those who are not familiar, that's an IEM from COS. I guess it's an IEM. It's very interesting shape. Almost looks like an earplug. Oh, Martin, you're in Mexico. It's midnight there, so maybe you're also a night person. Omar asking, what are the IEMs in my experience with the best soundstage and imaging? I think probably the ones I just reviewed last week. I think it was last week, or maybe it was this week. I don't even remember. What day is it? I reviewed the 64 audio stuff, and the Trio and the Forte, I think, are probably the strongest in terms of soundstage and imaging. Aaron Lacey saying, all Tin Hifi products that I bought have stopped working in some form or fashion. It's good if you want a little to last a month or two. Interesting. I mean, I can say I've got a ton of Tin Hifi stuff. It all still works, but I don't use it the way that, you know, you all typically use stuff, right? Most of you buy an IEM, like a Tin T2 or whatever, and you actually live with it. I get an IEM and I'll live with it for a couple of weeks, but apart from that, it goes into this cabinet, which, okay, yeah, there you go. There's my cabinet that's just got stacks of IEMs in there. So all my Tin Hifi stuff still works, but I also have probably not put it to the same amount of use that you have. So Martin, you switched to Amazon USA and you see the Moondrop SSR. I'm curious, does Amazon USA, will they ship to Mexico? That's pretty cool. Bunker Buster, you're elaborating on the COS plugs. You're saying it's an earplug with a tiny hole in it. You remember your dad buying them as a stocking stuffer. Yeah, I'm like most COS stuff, I'm sure it's been made for decades in exactly the same way. Jonathan, you're asking, if I were to recommend one IEM to the average person, what would it be? It would really depend on like price range. Give me a price range. You know, if I think of all the things that I've heard, if I'm trying to like stretch someone's budget maybe and give them a sound that I'm pretty confident they'll be pretty happy with, honestly, I mean, I love the Moondrop Blessing too, and that's, you know, probably my personal pick. But I think an easier recommendation for most people would be the Dunu EST112. I think that's an IEM that will work for a lot of people. Ryan Black asking, do I agree with the sentiment amongst the audiophile community that price to performance ratio IEMs are still a lot more expensive compared to headphones that perform at a similar level? That's honestly, it's kind of tough to answer that question because I think IEMs do some things better than headphones, and I think headphones do some things better than IEMs. Look like the Koss KSC75, 15 bucks. I can't think of anything in IEM space under maybe 150, 200 bucks that's as good as the KSC75, honestly. But like, I don't know, you can find things that maybe sound more detailed than the KSC75, but it might not, you know, the KSC, it's got that airiness, it's got that 3D quality to it that to get that in an IEM, you got to spend a lot more than 15 bucks. Does a $700 IEM sound as good as a $700 headphone? Again, I think they do things differently. I think IEMs are generally better at detail, at least the way I hear things. And I think headphones are generally better at sounding a little bit more natural, giving you that open stage, and just feeling more comfortable. Like IEMs, I find, have more issues with treble than headphones. I mean, there's obviously a lot of headphones that have issues with treble, but finding an IEM with really great treble is kind of rare, honestly. And I don't think it's that rare in the headphone space. I mean, treble's pretty hard to do. Don't get me wrong, but there's a lot of headphones that have fine treble that I wouldn't really complain about. Not a lot of IEMs, honestly. Koifish asking, have I heard the Blonde Mini? I have not. I haven't yet. Ryan Black, your recommendation to the average person would be AirPod Pro or Galaxy Buds Plus? Yeah, those are both pretty good, honestly. I know they're mainstream and like maybe we want to roll our eyes at it, but those are actually pretty decent IEMs. There could be a lot worse become mainstream stuff, you know, Raycons. I haven't heard of Raycons, so maybe they're great. Sorry about that. But I expect they're not. Elhan's asking, do I think I'm going to review the Shure Aonic 4? I'm interested in checking out the new Shure stuff, but I don't know. I didn't really like the Shure SE215. I found it really surprisingly not good. So that's made me hesitant to spend money on the other stuff. Alice is asking, how was the Manguard T? Haven't had a chance to check the review yet. Quick overview, please. So the Manguard T, I gave it, spoiler, I gave it 3 stars. It's a very solid set, kind of a neutral, kind of a warm neutral sound with a decent amount of bass in it. Maybe a little bit on the 2-dimensional side, but it's a pretty decent set. Omar, I have not tried, at least I don't think I've tried the Biodynamic DT770. Big Boss, I'm not going to review Raycons, but what I am going to do is I am actually going to go to sleep. So appreciate y'all hanging out, the conversation. This is fun. I enjoy doing this, and I hope you enjoy it as well. Maybe we'll do it more in the future, but for now, I'm going to sign off. If you found this video helpful, please hit the like button. It does help me out. If you're here right now at this point in time, you're probably already subscribed to the channel, but if not, subscribe to the channel, ding the bell, etc. And then I'll catch you on the next super review. Have a good night, morning, afternoon, whatever time it is where you are. Enjoy it. Adios.